could have been browned a little more on that side. I shall consider that that's browned, and we'll put this in an oven dish like this. See, it should have been browned enough on the crust, and then it would have held together. If I can shake that back into place a little bit.
In 1959, an editor in Boston looked at a 700-page manuscript that had taken 9 years to write and rejected it. Too long, too expensive to print, too much like an encyclopedia. The book was about French cooking. The author was a 46-year-old woman who had never worked a day in a restaurant and who, until her late 30s, could barely cook at all. Julia Child spent World War II behind a desk at an intelligence agency. One of her projects was helping develop a shark repellent. She didn't set foot in France until she was 36, and on her very first day there at a restaurant in Rouen, she ate a plate of sole in brown butter, and later called it the most exciting meal of her life. At 37, she enrolled in cooking school, Le Cordon Bleu, Paris, surrounded by professionals half her age. Then she and two friends spent nearly a decade writing the book that every publisher kept turning down. In 1961, a young editor at a different publishing house, Knopf, decided to take a chance on the giant rejected manuscript. Julia Child was 49 years old when Mastering the Art of French Cooking finally hit shelves. 2 years later, a Boston public television station let her stand behind a stove, on camera.
This awful American syndrome of fear of failure. And if you're going to have a sense of fear of failure, you're just never going to learn how to cook, because cooking is, well, lots of it is one failure after another, and that's how you finally learn. For instance, you've got to have developed what the French call je m'en foutisme, or I don't care what happens, the sky can fall and omelets can go all over the stove. I'm going to learn. I shall overcome.
The French chef ran for 10 years, 201 episodes, a Peabody, an Emmy, the first ever given to an educational program. The book, she was told, was unprintable, has never been out of print, 60 years and counting. The most famous cook in American history could not cook at 35. Nobody remembers that she started late. They only remember that she started. In 1990, a 41-year-old actor was found passed out on his kitchen floor. He had spent 2 decades doing theatre in New York, playing parts with names like Gang Member Number 2 and Hold Up Man. 20 years of work, and the credits didn't even use his name. The cocaine had been there for most of it. Now it was crack. Samuel L. Jackson grew up in segregated Tennessee with a stutter so bad he sometimes refused to speak. He found acting because it was the one place his voice worked. He was an usher at Martin Luther King's funeral. He got expelled from college for locking the board of trustees in a building for 2 days, demanding change. He was never short on conviction. He was short on chances. His family gave him one more, rehab, and 1 week after he got out, still in recovery, still shaking, Spike Lee handed him the role of a crack addict in Jungle Fever. He played an addict while he was still fighting his own addiction. No acting required, he said later. The film went to the Cannes Film Festival, and then the jury did something they had never done before.
You know, you go to rehab and you do this, you do that. I was a week out of rehab when I started doing Jungle Fever. So I didn't really need makeup.
Cannes invented a special award that year, Best Supporting Actor, created specifically for him. He was 42, 3 years later came Pulp Fiction, and an Oscar nomination at 45. Today, the films he has appeared in have grossed over $27 billion. Guinness once listed him as the highest grossing actor of all time. Almost every role you know him for happened after 40. The man spent 20 years as gang member number 2. And it turned out he hadn't missed his window. The window hadn't opened yet. In 1965, a 34-year-old single mother of 2 was waking up at 4 in the morning. Not because the baby was crying, because it was the only hour of the day that belonged to her. She had a full-time job, editing other people's books. Before sunrise, at the kitchen table, she was secretly writing her own. Toni Morrison was the first black woman to become a senior fiction editor at Random House, championing other writers' voices all day, every day. Her own first novel, The Bluest Eye, grew out of a story she had written for a small writers' group. It was published in 1970. She was 39. The first printing was around 2,000 copies. It barely sold. By the numbers, it flopped. She kept the day job, kept the 4 a.m. shift, and kept writing. 17 years after that first tiny printing, she published a novel called Beloved. When it lost the National Book Award, 48 writers signed a public letter of protest. The Pulitzer Committee answered a few months later, and in 1993, the phone rang from Stockholm.
Toni Morrison is the winner of the 1993 Nobel Prize for Literature. The novelist and professor at Princeton is the first Black American to ever win the award and only the 8th woman. David Navarro has more.
Sure.
At first it was disbelief, and then I, felt this sort of tremor, and then some other people called me, so I thought, oh yes, it must be.
The Nobel Prize in Literature, the first black woman in history to win it. She was 62. First novel at 39, Pulitzer at 57, Nobel at 62. The woman who owned the last decades of American literature spent her 30s believing she was only an editor. The 4 a.m. pages didn't care how old she was. Pages never do.
The fetters of race.
I think I write well, and I think I have a distinctive voice. That is something that I share with other writers who also write well and have distinctive voices. But that's what makes writing this very difficult, very risky, very powerful.
Julia Child couldn't cook at 35. Samuel L. Jackson was nobody's first choice at 41. Toni Morrison was an editor with a manuscript in a drawer. None of them were early. All of them were convinced at some point that the window had closed. It hadn't. It almost never has. The math is simple, and it never changes. The version of you that starts today will always, always be younger than the version that starts next year. You are not too late. You are exactly as late as everyone who made it. So start.